Alright everyone, it's time for the Occult video number 247. Existence technically shouldn't exist at all, which is something that I was thinking of a couple days ago. I figured I'd throw it into the Occult series here because it's just a little bit of a thinking about time and the concept of things being finite or infinite. Brings you to an odd paradox in which, technically speaking, there shouldn't be an existence to be aware of. Like looking around right now, seeing like myself or buildings or this computer, I shouldn't technically be here, and neither should you, and neither should any of this stuff around us. This sort of loosely comports to the Matrix theory, that really, like, everything, including the laws of physics that we experience, is all an illusion. We're basically an alien strapped into an artificial intelligence sort of video game with a bunch of NPCs in the literal sense, which is hilarious. And that at some point, maybe, like when you die or after you get bored with the game or whatever happens, that you unstrap from it and you find yourself in a reality where logic actually follows through. Like the fact that things can be paradoxical or seemingly otherworldly here is just taken as evidence that it's not real, basically. I'm not sure how strongly I believe in such a thing, but it's a possibility worth thinking about. But what I was thinking of is this, and here's the essential part of it, and the kitty's got its feet sticking up and its tail wiggling here, which is very cute. You exist, kitty, which is a good thing. Think about it this way, and it has to do with existence. Now, when I'm talking about existence, I'm not talking about the universe or the observable universe or any of these other terms that people sometimes use because they're meaningless. My personal belief about the three-dimensional expanse of space is that it goes infinitely beyond the edge of our observable universe. I don't believe in a single universe. I'm not even sure I believe in multiverse theory so much as the idea that space is simply limitless. Once in a while, through methods we don't understand, existence comes into being, that is matter and energy. At other points it disappears, sort of it goes into a void. I'm having a feeling that it's sort of like, you know, existence is like a huge block of Swiss cheese and it has sort of pockets in it that have or do not have matter and energy. Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Basically, the way in which existence works is this, though, and here's the paradoxical part. Imagine that three-dimensional space, not the matter and energy therein, but simply the space able to be inhabited by that energy and matter, or affected by what we would call time, the ability to progress being localized. Imagine that it never didn't exist. It's infinite. It's always been there, which comports to a basic understanding of reality in the skeptical sense. If that is indeed the case, like if I draw out a line that's infinitely long, I shouldn't technically, starting at any point, I shouldn't be able to reach any other point because the distance is infinite. Only in relation to another point can there be a finite distance. So if I choose 2 points on that line, I can say, well, there's a yard between them. But if it's infinite, since there is no beginning, reaching a point, if there is a linear progression of time, shouldn't actually be possible. Because you should be in motion, even if you are moving at near infinite speeds, you should forever be in motion attempting to attain that point. No amount of distance is meaningful compared to the whole because the whole is infinite. Therefore, if such a thing is the case, there shouldn't be an existence. There shouldn't be anything, essentially. It never should have been around. Even though it was there forever, we shouldn't exist. That is, the observable around us had a finite beginning. The matter, the energy, the construction, everything that I'm doing right now takes place at a discrete moment. None of those moments should ever be arrived at. My birth shouldn't have happened. Your birth shouldn't have happened. I shouldn't die. There shouldn't be a building outside. The cat shouldn't be purring in my lap getting petted right now. I'm very sorry, kitty. Shouldn't happen because there should be an infinite amount of time before it occurs. Now let's say that there's finite time. Let's say that there was a definite singular beginning. Yeah, the kitty got angry because I kept talking about her non-existence. I'm very sorry that you're just an illusion, probably. Now let's assume that it's finite. That is, that there's a specific point at which that line begins. That begs the question, what caused that to happen? See, this is the other part of the paradox, is that unless I drag in a bunch of otherworldly, spiritual, or cosmic material, I can't even explain that existence. And then I have to explain, well, existence itself in the tangible, physically rational sense may not have existed, but obviously that uncaused cause was pre-existent, whether it's a god, a cosmic force, or something beyond physics. That existed before. What space did it occupy, or how did it actually have any power to create if it did not itself incorporate as an entity of some sort? How is it rational and able to do that? Or how did it have power to generate energy and matter? There are all of these additional unanswered questions that are it's much easier to posit that things simply always existed. What's not rational within that is to posit how I can exist in that framework. So technically, under that framework or the other, nothing should be here. There shouldn't be anything. There shouldn't be an existence at all. I shouldn't be able to interact with you. There shouldn't be anything, essentially, in either of these frameworks. Now, you could posit, of course, that time is not linear. You could say, well, string theory is real. It's a little bit more spooky than that. Again, we've got some degree of reason to believe that either that or the matrix theory is true. Well, if the matrix theory is true, essentially, is it a form of solipsism? Am I the only one who's genuinely real and everything else is an NPC? Or is it like some people are NPCs? What about if I'm an NPC? What if I'm just a generated character and don't even really exist? What if the generated characters in this particular artificial reality are so sophisticated that we can actually feel and sort of have what we consider free will even though we don't? What about the argument between free will and determinism? Where does it leave that? If there's a finite beginning to everything and there's no otherworldly entity to govern it, determinism has to be real. If there's no beginning, if it's infinite, or if there is an otherworldly entity and therefore a totally different set of rules beyond physics, it doesn't need to be deterministic. And so here's the thing, though. The paradox of the fact that I shouldn't exist at all actually gives me hope, and here's why. Because arguably the easiest way to rationalize and explain it away is to posit an uncaused cause. Now, this is not, by the way, me saying, well, aha, Styx has embraced Christianity. No, I don't believe your God exists. It could be any god, it could be any force, it could be any pantheon, it could be something totally irrational, insane, and incapable of being quantified. I admit nothing to theism. I'm not a theist or an atheist. I don't care. I became apatheistic a long time ago because there's no way to prove things one way or the other. The idea of religion is a set of rationalization and rules derived from the assumption that one of those beings or forces happens to discretely exist. I totally cast that aside. I think that all organized religions are a bunch of voodoo hokum, and I can see this historically as the case. That being said, I can't rationalize the fact that I exist. And I would challenge, I suppose, the more hardline secular atheist to explain exactly how to reconcile such a paradox. I would also challenge a religious person to do the same. For instance, let's say you're Christian. Well, God's always been there. Well, again, how did we arrive at the point of our own creation then as a discrete particular moment? How is it that an infinite amount of time managed to pass? Because if it's infinite, it shouldn't ever be able to pass. Nothing should come to pass. God never should have said, let there be light. It doesn't make any sense that he was able to do that. He shouldn't have been able to take any action because he's hamstrung by the fact that he's always existed. The all existence of your deity actually is almost self-defeating the logic of your deity existing at all. It's a very, very interesting paradox. I don't know, I find such things, a logical exercise, to be fun more than anything else. Some people, they can't wrap their heads around it and it demoralizes them. They're like, oh my God, I'm like, maybe atheism's real. I become as nothing when I die or something. I'm more like, it's an exciting thing to think of because it actually opens up broad possibilities that the entire reality we witness is totally not even real. If that's the case, hell, the real reality beyond it's probably a lot better. It's probably happier. There's probably no mortality there. And you don't need a heaven and you don't need a hell because the things you're doing now are like part of a video game. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty good video game. It's got some great graphics. It's funny, imagine the other paradox, which is you're living in the Matrix. You're living in a video game and yet people invented video games to escape from that video game too. And then in some cases you can play video games within a video game, like with San Andreas. You can play that one with like the bumblebee and shit, and that's really funny. You even made your video game character escapist from the video game that you're playing within the confines of being a video game character in a larger video game. Maybe it's video games all the way up. Have we thought of that possibility? It's not Turtles all the way down. It's actually just AI systems and cartridges and CDs whirling and computers all the way up. We're actually just like infinite androids. I don't actually believe that, but it's possible. It's just as possible as any god that's ever been posited, I suppose. That's about all. Peace out.